Hey YouTubers, this story is kind of a sad story. It involves a college student who had his legs, fingers amputated after eating leftover Chinese takeout. So let's get into the story. But before we do, hit that subscribe button for me on the YouTube page. Thank you. This case was reported in March in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2021 because it's kind of rare to eat leftover food and have this systemic bacterial infection. So, as the story goes, this teenager was diagnosed with a bacterial infection, and because of this infection, he had his fingers and below his knee, his legs were amputated. So, this 19-year-old college student developed sepsis and lost his legs and fingers after eating leftover Chinese takeout food. The doctor called it the perfect storm of events. The New England Journal of Medicine reported this case back in March of 2021. The report detailed how this young man was admitted to Massachusetts General Hospital and he was suffering from shock, multiple organ failure, skin mottling, and a rapidly progressive reticular rash. And he had been well until 20 hours before his admission. So this was rapid. This onset of this bacterial infection was very rapid. So the Massachusetts Journal of Medicine continued to report that the patient had been well until 20 hours before the admission, when diffuse abdominal pain and nausea developed after he ate rice, chicken, and lo mein leftovers from a restaurant meal. And the color was bilious or red-brown. The patient had multiple episodes of emesis, which is vomiting, that occurred, abdominal pain and vomiting, followed by development of chills, generalized weakness, progressively worsening diffuse myalgias, muscle pains, chest pain, shortness of breath, headache, neck stiffness, and blurry vision. The patient was having all these symptoms. His temperature was over 105 degrees Fahrenheit. His heart rate was 166 beats per minute, and his respiratory rate was 28 breaths per minute. The medical journal said a net-like rash, which was purplish in color, was diffuse all over the legs, face, chest, abdomen, back, arms, and legs. So the rash was everywhere. It was a diffuse reticular rash, net-like, purplish rash. So he underwent blood and urine test to determine what was going on with his system. And he was diagnosed with a bacterial infection called Neisseria meningitis, which caused his blood to clot and his liver to fail. His skin necrosis was said to be caused by purpura fulminans, a severe complication of meningococcal septicemia. So after doctors dove into his medical history, they found that he had only received one of 3 doses of the meningococcal conjugate vaccine without a booster, and had only received 1 dose of the serogroup B meningococcal vaccine out of 2 or 3 recommended by the CDC. After getting treatment from the hospital and good care, And after he had all his fingers and he had a below the knee amputation on both legs, and of course, just good medical care, he went on to have relatively good recovery. So, according to the report, he became sick, and his friend who had the same meal just vomited, and that's all that happened to his friend, the vomiting. But he did not come down with his bacterial infection. There's sepsis all over his body. So this is just a caution. Word to the wise. Cautionary tale. To reduce the risk of food poisoning from bacteria or any type of leftover food, consumers should refrigerate their food no later than 2 hours after it is removed from the fire or any type of heat source. I know in South America, in the West Indies, and in certain parts of Africa, people like to cook and leave their food out all day long, and they go back and forth just picking at it all day long. But while it's sitting there, it's building bacteria, and you can get food poisoning. Only God has watched over us so far and keep us from getting sick. Because how many times, even in America, you cook, you leave your food on the stove, you go back for second, thirds before you even put the food away. And by that time, it may be on the stove for 5 hours. And so you run a risk of that building of bacteria in that pot to get you sick. And you never know who is going to get sick, because look at this young man and his friend. They ate the same food and only one of them got sick, to the point of amputations of his both legs and fingers. And the other person, the friend, all he did was vomited. So the takeaway here is to get your booster shots. If you know that you haven't gotten all your shots for any type of or vaccine that you've had that you need a booster shot, get your booster shots, whether it's polio or whatever shots that you need, get them. And look at your vaccination card and see if you need your 10-year booster, because some things you need like a 10-year booster. And so most of us don't even follow up, but we really need to be more diligent. This young man had not gotten his meningococcal booster, and that could have saved him, saved his fingers and legs from being amputated. YouTubers, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on the YouTube page before you leave, and drop it in the comment section of any stories you have that is similar. I'm over and out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.